and we're going to be talking about AIG functionality today. The business owner with Stephanie Cyrus, she's with me here today, and we're going to be working as a tandem team. If everyone can hear me, I'd like you to raise your hand from within the webinar. Perfect, thank you for that. Yay. I have the bit.ly attached to that slide. So if you can click on that, and it should be in editable mode, so you can click on it, it will take you to the slides themselves. We are recording this morning, so this will be posted after we finish today. And this set of slides will also be posted. So the bit.ly will stop working for you after this slide gets posted to the NCSYS site. But for right now, that will work for you for the time being. There will be another person from the support desk sitting with us as well. So it's always a good thing to have another set of eyes and ears with us. If you have any questions today, I'd like you to put them in through the question portal part of the webinar, and we will be answering them as we go along. Would you like to begin?
Sure. So my name is Stephanie Cyrus, and I'm the State Consultant for Gifted and Advanced Programming here at the Department of Public Instruction. Welcome everyone today. We're glad to have you with us. Here are our learning goals for today. This is just an overview of AIG, the programming and the functionality for gifted students in PowerSchool. So we'll look at some things like access and roles. We'll also work through how to search for students, how to identify and tag students. We'll show you the AIG alert and where you can find information about the alert. We'll look at enrollments that are already existing. How do you modify and update that? We'll talk a little bit about transfer students. We have a couple of fixes going out in November that impact transfer students, and we'll also talk about, when appropriate, how to withdraw a student from an AIG program. And at the end, we'll look at some of the reports. And as you know, we have a couple of big reports each year, the headcount, first of which is we will be doing the data pull on November 30th. So we'll be talking about how to prepare for the fall headcount, and the same process works for the spring headcount. So we'll be talking about that, and we'll be looking at exceptions. So those are our learning goals for today, and hopefully that will capture most of the questions that you might have, okay?
Perfect. I am actually going to go back one slide so some people can grab that bit.ly again. At the same time, I'm going to put it in the chat.
Great.
So folks, I'm glad that everyone is here with us today. I'm just grabbing the bit.ly again so people can have access to it. And it is definitely case sensitive, so please follow that. And my typing skills are at a minimum this morning, I can see. Something's going on.
Do you want me to try to grab it?
No, it's just that all of a sudden I'm not in, it's overriding instead of inserting my text. Okay, so there's that. And let me go through. All right,
so we're going to talk for a moment first about AIG access and roles. Okay, the AIG program information is available for view and edit for only those individuals who need the access to do so. So right now what we have is a setup where we have 3 different levels of access, and it should be based primarily on your role and kind of what you need to do. So the first level is the AIG specialist. So I'm going to be reading from the bottom up. The AIG specialist, generally that's your personnel who work with AIG, but not necessarily folks who input data. All right, so in other words, those specialists at the school who would need to be able to view the student information, but not necessarily input the data, that's the level of access for an AIG specialist. Then we have an AIG lead specialist. That access level is not only viewing, but also allows them to modify information on the AIG program pages. Now there is a window of time where they can do that modification, and that's within 30 days. So whenever the records are created, the person with the AIG lead specialist access would be able then to modify that record within 30 days. And finally, we have the AIG district coordinator, and they have kind of the ultimate level of access. They view and modify within any time period, so not just within that 30-day window. So whomever it is that is inputting data into PowerSchool about students, that person needs an appropriate level of access. So one of the things that folks ask questions about a lot is it the actual person who serves as the district coordinator that has that LEA access level, is assigned that role? And that may or may not be the case. You have to decide who is going to be putting in the data and then decide the type of access they need. So there may be some district coordinators out there that have other folks assigned to do data entry. Those would be the folks with that level of access. So you can also have more than one person within a district at each of these levels. So the point here is to be thoughtful about who will be accessing data, who will be inputting data, and how long do they need that access. And that will help you determine the access and roles that you assign to different individuals. Okay.
Yeah. And I'll just interject that at the bottom there is a QRD for the steps to create those AIG security roles, and that should be up to date. And if that is something that you cannot get access to, if you don't find it, then definitely a ping to Stephanie and she'll help you get to that. But NCSIS should have that for us.
Okay, that's a pretty big question. And I will say on this slide, what we've given to you is a shot of what it looks like when you're trying to do something in the AIG program information and you don't have the right access. You'd see it kind of looks like gobbledygook, for lack of a better word.
Right.
That's a telltale sign that although you may have lots of other kinds of rights in PowerSchool, you might be an administrator with quote-unquote full rights and so on and so forth, that doesn't mean that you have the security set up for AIG program information, okay? And so if you see the screen kind of in the background, that is a telltale sign that you need to ask someone to specifically set up the appropriate role and access for you, okay?
That's perfectly, that is so accurate. The biggest thing that I would just say as far as the front slide, the front picture,
right.
If you don't see that update button,
right.
that is another telltale sign.
Correct.
So those are kind of two pictures that'll let you know off the bat whether you have the right permissions to do what you need to do.
Exactly. And so if you see one of these, if you see the back slide, then that's not a help desk ticket. That is a conversation with whomever in your district is the data management person in charge, and making sure that they have that QRD and that they set you up with the appropriate role and security group, okay? So just wanted to troubleshoot that just a little bit because that has caused a lot of angst and stress for folks, okay? So outside of that, we're going to talk a little bit about that access and role setup. So.
Right. So this kind of goes through a little bit of what that QRD talks about. So I'm going to kind of briefly touch on it so that you can have an idea. So in the navigation path would be going to the staff record. So you're going to look up a staff and open up the staff record, go to their security settings page, and then within the page, you're going to go to the middle tab, which is admin access and roles. So when you're in that middle tab, this is where you can see what permissions you have and what group, security group you are attached to. So what we have done with AIG is that you may have the data manager group assigned to you, which is what the yellow box is showing you. But within that group, you have different roles set for you. So it's kind of like you have this big hat for your LEA, but underneath your big hat, you have little hats of different roles of what you do. So we are adding multiple roles to your security group. And these particular roles now are going to be AIG access roles. So once you have the staff record open, you go to the security settings page and you go to the admin access roles tab. You are then going to click the word add in that bottom picture that you see, and it will take you to, let me go back one, that will take you into the place where you can add the AIG, whichever role you need, whether it's the lead specialist or the coordinator role. Because people can have more than one role in addition to what security group they're attached to. So that's kind of the big picture of where to find those roles and how to do it. Once that is in place, then we can start talking about working with students.
Correct.
So right now we are in PowerSchool. You have all the permissions that you need, and we're working from the start page. So this start page, whether you're at the school level or at the LEA level, you can search for students that have some kind of AIG status. So the actual field name that we look for within PowerSchool is listed at the bottom of that page, of that slide. If you don't feel like typing all of that in, or you don't remember what that is, you could click the View Field List that is a link on that front page, and that's what that little picture is in the forefront. You can type in the words under the filter AIG, and it will highlight all of the fields within PowerSchool that are related to AIG. And when you click that, it will pop that into that search field. So that search field in our case is S_NC_AIG_X.AIG_status. So that is the field name. And then if the next two pieces is where it's a little bit more confusing. If you put the hashtag or the pound sign after the word status, and then hit the search button, it will bring up every student who has been tagged or has something in that field value. So the pound sign will say, bring up everybody that has something in that AIG status. If you want to know who is not tagged or who does not have any AIG status, you're not going to use the pound sign, but you use the equal sign. So you're going to do that S_blah, blah, blah status equals, and then put nothing after it. And that will say, okay, find me everybody who does not have an AIG status. I'm guessing that you're not going to do that as much as you're going to do the other, because the majority of your students will not be AIG, is what I'm guessing at a particular level. So I think the pound sign is going to be your best bet.
Definitely more efficient.
For sure, for sure. So that's one way to search for students. The other way, or the next step, I should say, in identifying or tagging students is once you find a student, maybe you don't need to search for them. You know what student you want to work with. you're going to search for and open a student record. And this picture on this slide, on the left-hand side, all of the information on that navigation bar deals with a student. So I already have a student open. And on the underneath the information area, the very last option is called AIG Program. And if you don't remember all of this stuff that we're talking about, there's also a QRD for that. And it's QRD AIG search functionality. So it will help you through some of the things that we have already talked about. So when you click on the AIG program link on the left, you should see this type of screen minus all the little black spots.
There you go.
And it has 3 different tabs of information there. There's the current status, program services, and identification evidence. The one that you see automatically when you come to this page is the current status page.
Do you want me to?
I would love to have you do that.
So once you've gotten to this point and you have a student that you need to add program information for, let's say this is a student who has just gone through the identification process. You guys identify maybe in 3rd or 4th grade, and you've just decided and determined that this student needs services and that you are going to add him or her to the AIG program. What you're going to do is click Add to add a new record for the student, okay? And so when we do that, we pull up a screen where we have to enter some general information. And so on this program screen, the school name should auto-populate. If it's the first time in a new record, that should auto-populate for you. The next field, though, is the school placement date. This is going to be the date that the student begins receiving services at a particular school. And then the AIG identification. And let me just stop for a second and tell you that the school placement date, really you just need to be consistent with what you use as the school placement date. Some districts will use that kind of start date as the date that their paperwork is all signed. Others use the start date as the date that the services actually begin. What I would encourage you to do is be consistent. That's just a programming note that needs to be consistent, but that is not something that we here at DPI regulate. That is something that the LEA decides. So you have a school placement date, and then you have an AIG identification. So let me just say that, well, let me hold that thought. We'll go ahead to the next screen, and then I'll come back.
Okay.
The AIG identification, right now we have 5 different identifications that are available for your use, okay? We have academically gifted, and we have intellectually gifted, all right? And so then we have folks who are only identified in one area, so academically gifted in reading or math. If there's only one area, you would use the AM or AR. The academically gifted, the AG label is for the district to define. That was previously used to mean both reading and math. Now the district has the opportunity to decide what that means. As well, you have AI, academically and intellectually gifted, and again, that is district or charter school LEA defined. And then you have intellectually gifted. Okay, so you would have to choose one area, and then you're going to click submit or cancel if you realize that you have made some sort of mistake. I would encourage you to look specifically to your local LEA, your AIG plan, and that will help you determine what identification area to use for a particular student. Okay? Now, once you've done that, your student will now have an AIG alert button. And so we wanted to show you what that alert button looks like. We are really thrilled that the alert is now back in Power Teacher. We had it in Power Teacher a couple years ago. Something happened and it didn't come back. But now it is back available in Power Teacher, and Jackie's got the arrows to show you the student backpack that's that top icon, you can see that AIG, the teachers could see that there was an alert for the student. Now there are also alerts for English language learners and EC students, and if you look at the bottom, there's now a QRD that exists to show you kind of how to use that and what that means, but it also is still in the administrative side as well. So we are thrilled to have that alert button back. We know that classroom teachers are the ones who really need to be able to see which of their students are identified as gifted.
Right. So you only see that AIG alert button after you've selected a student and looked at their schedule per se. So that's one of the screens. So it does not show on a roster of students.
Correct.
Which has the AIG. So you actually have to open the student up per se in Power Teacher to see that AIG alert.
You've got to go to that knapsack.
For a particular person.
Right.
Yeah, because the knapsack kind of lets you do other things as well. You have to actually pick the person after you go into the backpack.
Gotcha.
And I think, they all get that part.
So I think we have a question.
I do. Is there a way to unclick that button? For example, when a student moves from another district in NC but does not meet our district criteria, the AIG alert?
No. So the easy answer is no. That's not kind of what you do. There is a process for that, and if you'll hold your question, Kim, we're going to come to that. We'll talk about what to do when you have transfers, okay? But you can't just unclick that button, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Thank you for that. That's a great question. All right, so we're at a point where we want to look at other functions, okay? And so what other things can you do besides adding a record? And so with the right access level, you can do these three things. You can delete, modify, and withdraw. And so we're going to look at each of those things and look at a couple of scenarios, and we'll talk those through. Okay.
Trying to get my mouse in the right place. We're all good.
No problem. So the delete is the first one here that we're going to walk through. So once you have a student record that exists, what you would do if you needed to delete that record is you would go to the search for the student. Right. You would click on their AIG program information, and that's true for any time. Like, so when you want to make a change to a student's program information, you always have to search for the student, click on their AIG program information. You will see these three tabs. You'll see the current status, program services, and identification evidence, and you should see the current school, and then you should have an update button. Now, just a quick aside, if you are someone with AIG specialist access, you do not have an update button. You will never have that because you only have viewing access. So only the AIG lead specialist or AIG district coordinator will ever have this update button, okay? But once you click the update button, you can choose a couple of different functions, and one of those is delete, okay?
So
go ahead.
When would they delete?
Great question. So delete, I want you to think about this. You only delete the record if it was just an accident, that you entered the record for the wrong student. Maybe there were two Stacy Adams, one Stacy M and one Stacy P, and you entered the record for Stacy M when it should have been entered for Stacy P. So if it's just a record that somehow we just made a mistake.
Human error.
Human error. We created a record for a student that never should have had a record. That is the only time you delete. All right?
So that's why it's a good thing that it has the confirm down there.
That's right. So once you hit delete, you have to also hit confirm or cancel. Sorry.
There we go. Yeah.
So that's the only time you're going to use the delete button.
Perfect.
Okay. Now, sorry, were you going to ask?
If the current record was entered within 30 days.
Okay, that is, and let me just speak to that. if you created the record and within 30 days you realize that you've made this error, the AIG lead specialist could be the person who undoes it or deletes the record. After 30 days, it has to be someone with that district coordinator level access. And that's pretty important. It used to be that you didn't have that access at all. You had to send those requests to us here at DPI through a help ticket, which is crazy. So now we have the access that you can do that yourself.
At least for the 30 days.
30 days, and then it has to be the district coordinator who does it after 30 days.
Cool.
Okay.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
All right, let's look at then modifying or updating, okay? So again, you go through the student search process, click on AIG program information, and now you see the 3 tabs you want to update. So here, this is a situation where the most common, I think, example is if you had a student that was originally identified as maybe academically gifted in math. And after a year or two, and you collect additional data, you realize that this student now also meets your qualification criteria to be academically gifted or academically and intellectually gifted. So you want to add a new record. So what you're going to do then is add a new record that shows that new identification. Is the next slide that?
I think, yeah. So I guess the important part here is in order to add, we have to update first.
Correct. In order to add a new record or edit the latest record, you must click update first.
And I think that is a little bit, you have to know that part. Because it's not intuitive. It doesn't say add any place.
That's right. You want to, you have to click update. Anytime you want to make any changes, if you think about it this way, anytime you want to make any changes at all to the program information, you click update. And then that allows you the access to those various options.
Perfect.
Right, and so again, there will be a school, you'll have to enter school name, school placement date, AIG identification, and you can make those updates and change it that way. So you can add a new record, or you can edit the latest record. Let's say that what you meant to do was create a record that was for a student who is academically gifted in reading, and you selected the wrong identification. Then you can edit that latest record instead of adding a new record, right? Because what we want those records to show is a really accurate historical picture of the services the student was receiving and when they began and when they maybe stopped. So, so those are the kind of couple different situations.
Or the date was, you had the wrong service start date.
Yes, if you had the wrong service start date. So again, the edit latest record is different from delete, because delete, you just made a mistake and that never should have been there. Edit means, yes, this child is gifted, I just made a mistake in the data entry somewhere. And so that's when you do the edit latest record.
Cool.
Okay? And so that highlights that for you. Right?
Perfect.
All right, now this is the sticky one, and this speaks to your question, Kim. What about withdrawals? What if we need to withdraw a student from current enrollment? So the way that is handled is, again, through an update. Once you've searched for the student, click their program information, you've got the opportunity to update. One of the choices is withdraw. There are only 2 reasons that you can withdraw a student. One is a parent request. The other is they do not meet your LEA criteria. So I'm just going to say here that if that's the case, then you update and then you click the withdrawal, you enter the withdrawal date, and you enter the code, okay? That is what you do. That is for a student who was always in your LEA, right? So that record, in other words, must belong to you, all right, if you're trying to modify that data. All right, so we'll talk in just a moment about how to withdraw a student who came to you as a transfer. But in order to use the update and to modify this particular record, you must be the district that entered that record you own, okay?
So it has to be at that LEA and they're no longer going to be listed as gifted and talented.
Correct.
And that, so the reason obviously is definitely something that we need to track as well. That's what that
correct.
code is for.
I would say, just as from our perspective at the state level, we strongly discourage withdrawing a student. We have huge concerns about doing that. However, if there is a need to do that, this is the process that you use. We encourage you to look at the child year to year and determine their current needs and how to best meet those needs. So I'm just going to say again, we strongly discourage withdrawing a student, or what we call de-gifting. We strongly discourage that, okay? However, we do have to have a process, because sometimes that request comes from parents. And so that's how you do that if it's a student from within your LEA.
Okay, we do have a couple questions. I'm looking in Power School now, trying to make sure my AIG lead specialist has this role so they can edit, but I do not even see that as a role choice. The only role related to AIG is coordinator. How do I assign those specialists the role I'm looking for?
So in the QRD, you have to create a group. That's one of the steps. A role, and then assign that role.
Right.
Yeah,
So Paula, if you are the data manager, or you are a person that has the permission to create roles, because you need to have that security permission as well. So it may be you need someone that has the permissions to use that QRD to create that other role. So you're going to need to have a role created called AIG lead specialist, and then that can be attached to the person that you need it attached to.
Great.
We have one more.
The other question, we have the problem that a child was AIG math, or so I'm thinking you meant you identified them as academically gifted in math, and then qualified later as AG. We enter the new information, so I'm guessing that means you added a new record with a new start date, and the identification was now AG. But however, when running a list of AIG students, that student is showing up twice. How can we get, so just the latest record shows on the report? So, Carol, if you can let me know, if you were using the current student list or the SQL4 report, then we have noticed that that is happening. If that's the report you were running and you saw them on the list twice, if you could please have your person in your district submit a help desk ticket. We are trying to get that cleared up because we do want them to only show once. I also want you, Carol, to take a look at your head count, because the head count should be pulling from the latest record only. And so if you can help me by finding that out, by running your head count to see if indeed they are only showing up once on the head count, but they're showing up twice on one of those other state reports, that's good for us to know so that we can get that pushed through in terms of a fix, okay?
So you need to know, are they showing up once on the head count?
Yes.
Or multiple times?
Right, I need to know if you can run the head count and check to see if they're only showing up once or multiple times. But I also need you to go ahead and submit a work ticket or help desk ticket, remedy ticket, so that we can get that fixed with our SQL4 and current student reports specifically, because that has come up at least once or twice so far this year, and so that's the way that we fix that issue. Okay, and Carol, you can let me know in the chat if that all made sense. Sometimes I'm not sure.
Okay, I'm getting there.
All right, I think those are the questions that we had so far.
Okay, so we do have one more.
Oh, great question. If a student remains in the same LEA, must a new record be created as they move up to new schools? So, for example, a fifth grader moving to middle school or an eighth grader moving to high school, and that answer is no. You don't create that record manually. that should be automatically happening in the EOY process. So what you will notice, Carrie, is that if you are the receiving, for example, if you're at a middle school and you're receiving students, what you'll notice is that a new record was created on July 1 of whatever year, and it will show that now they are at the assigned middle school, right? So, for example, if you were in Asheville City and you had a student who moved from Vance Elementary to Asheville Middle School, you would get, on July 1, you would see a record that now showed Asheville Middle School as their school placement date. So you would see July 1 as their new school placement date. Everything else about that record should remain the same unless you go in then and edit that latest record, okay? But that happened a couple of years ago. Actually, it was July 1, 2015. It caused a little bit of a stir. We didn't know that was happening, and it happened. So, but that is an automated process for you at this point, okay? So in the EOY, that happens.
Cool. We do have one more question. It says, hi, I am the lead specialist, and I have these roles, but the specialists in the schools also have this ability. Is that okay? I think I understood you to say that that is a district decision.
That's correct. So Kathy, I would just examine, do your specialists in the schools need the ability to access and edit records, or do they just need to be able to view? Okay, and so that is absolutely a district decision. Some districts, only the data manager puts any data in. In some districts, it's the AIG specialist who has all of the data entry. So depending on how your folks are utilized, that's when you should decide what type of access they should have, okay? But definitely is a district decision, okay?
Will a recording of this webinar be posted somewhere soon? So,
soon is such a relative.
Exactly. So, yeah, when we're done today, it takes a little bit for us to get it out there, but you will know that it is posted. You'll see it in the Friday bulletins. It will let you know what new stuff has been posted. Or you can always just go to ncsys.org site and do a search for it, but everyone will know through the Friday bulletins when they do get posted. Okay, I do have.
I responded to Carol, and then is the correct QRD to establish rights and roles?
Was this not a DPI pushed established role?
No.
I do not believe it was pushed. I think it has to be created LEA by LEA.
Okay.
Alrighty.
I think that is the last of the questions for right now. But don't worry, we will stop again and continue answering your questions as they come in.
Easy for you to say.
Yes, or not. Transfer students. So when a student is transferred to another LEA, that data really should go with them in the transfer process. Now, we will be upfront and honest with you, that has not always happened. It's on a consistent basis. And so there actually is a fix going out in the November maintenance weekend that will ensure, in air quotes, that process does happen. So say you have a student from Bladen County who transfers to Wake County, then that student on the enrollment at the new school, when that transfer process happens, a new record will be created using the old data. So the identification stays the same, but that new record is created that shows the new school that they've just enrolled in, as well as the date of enrollment, okay? That will show up as the school placement date. And then you'll have a record that shows that they are now in a new school, okay? Now, you are not actually able to modify a record from another LEA, okay? So we've automated this process to make this a little bit more streamlined, but you cannot, what has happened so far up until now, the student comes to you from another school, you may or may not get a new record created. It might not have happened in the transfer process. And so you might have noticed a student, you know, a parent might have come to you and said, my student just got here, we were AIG in such and such district, we need to, you know, get AIG services now. And upon your, you know, research, you find that student, okay? And then you try to figure out what to do. So a lot of folks have a process in place where if that student from another district does not meet their own individual LEA criteria, they withdraw them. Again, I take you back to our state stance is not to de-gift students, but we understand that that does happen. But you cannot modify a record from another LEA. So before now, you had to create a new record. You had to add a new record. Going through that process we went through already.
With your own school.
With your own school, right? You had to identify them and then update that record to withdraw them, okay? So now that process is streamlined because you will see the transfer student record will be created automatically, and if you need to do something to that student, either edit or withdraw, then you will be modifying your own record now because that record is automatically created for you. I will suggest to you that if that is the case, if you are in a district that still does that still withdraws students who don't meet your individual criteria, that you cannot, should not do that without proper parent communication. You do not just exit a student without having a conversation and at least letting them know what is happening, okay? A good portion of our districts in our state now have, for lack of a better word, kind of reciprocity, where they will take in a student who may or may not meet their criteria and they figure out the best way to serve them. And that's what I would encourage you to do, is figure out what's the best way to serve this student, okay? And the slide you're looking at now shows you an AIG student before a transfer. And so notice that student was in Asheville, and then notice that after the transfer, you've got the new record created that shows the new school. The date of the transfer down here is the 10/25/2017. Notice that the identification remained the same. You see the alert button there. That's what will be happening after the November, what I believe is November 10th, but or something, November maintenance weekend.
If it's not happening now. So it does
Correct.
intermittently happen.
Intermittently.
Yeah.
That's the word.
That's a good word. So the other thing is now you have the ability to go in and do that update, whether
Correct.
it's withdrawal or edit. Correct.
So we'll stay here for just a second. I want you to notice that you can see here a historical record. Our goal is to have a clean historical record so that we can see, you know, where the student has been and what they've done. Notice too, under the AIG program information where you see the alert and you see where it would be student name and grade 10, notice that it says initial identification on 2/9/2011. That is a fixed, it's kind of a fixed quantity right there. It matches your initial, like the very first record that was created for a student, you'll notice down there, was at Isaac Dixon Elementary on 2/9/2011. And so that initial identification stays the same, but the school placement date changes based on, you know, when they transferred to a new school, when they begin services in a new location, okay? So we see the historical record, and that's a beautiful thing. It took us a long time to get there.
That's awesome.
But it's beautiful. Just beautiful. All right. There are two other kinds of updates that you can do. These are relatively new pages, and we are very excited about. The first is the Identification Evidence tab. So once you have searched a student, you have gone to their AIG program information, you click Update, you can, don't click Update, you can see the other two tabs, okay? Those tabs across next to current status, and one is identification evidence. You can use this tab to create a record that shows all of the criteria and assessment data you utilized to identify this student. So you can enter here, if you did a screening assessment like the COGAT or the INAT or the InView, if you use an achievement assessment like the OLSAT, or you use the EOG scores, whatever it is you use to identify this student, you can enter that data here, okay? And that is supremely helpful because that transfers with the student everywhere that they go. So we can see a record of, this is the identification evidence that we use. And if you have new data that suggests new identification, you can enter that as well. You also have a button you see to run the report, and you can run a beautiful little report that shows all of that evidence on one page and does have space for signatures. If that's something that you shared with parents and you wanted them to see and you wanted a conference about, you have that opportunity, okay? Similarly, we now also have a program services tab. You see the two buttons, create a new plan and run the report. When you hit create a new plan, you can enter in all of the services that the student will receive in your setting, in your school. So this is really fantastic. It can be used as your differentiated education plan. All AIG students should have a DEP. And if you're in a district that has gone through some kind of struggles with creating a DEP, or if you're thinking and trying to find a way to automate the DEP process, this is it. This is like the no-cost solution for you. You can enter this information here. When you run a report, you see all of the services, and again, there's spaces for signatures. So it's really a nice feature. Let me just say that there is no expectation that you will use these features. We built these for your availability and use, but we do not require them. I encourage all folks to maybe consider starting with this year's cohort of 3rd or 4th graders whenever you identify, to enter that information so that they have it, but not think about trying to go backwards and enter it in for all of your currently identified students, but maybe starting with this group. So that's a thought, not a requirement, not even a request, just a thought, okay? So you have that opportunity, and these are great tools to use. All right, so generating AIG reports. Again, PowerSchool is the authoritative data source for AIG data. We do, let me just say, we use this data in 2 separate ways, and they're distinctly different. We use the data for our child count. So we do federal and state reporting on the numbers of gifted students. We look at gender, ethnicity, all kinds of things. We use it for child count data. But also know that this is the authoritative source for your accountability data as well, because AIG in our state model is a subgroup. And so you just need to know that the data you get back is only as good as the data you put in and as accurate as the data you put in. So as you're looking at EVOS and accountability and you're seeing some strange things, track it back to your, what's in PowerSchool, okay? So I just encourage you to be very thoughtful about that and be very cognizant of being accurate with your reports, okay?
I think this just kind of shows you where to find them on the dashboard, and just kind of, and I know that Stephanie talks about this, but there's a fall and there's a spring. So they are listed separately with separate dates attached to them.
That's correct. Do you want to talk about this a little bit?
Sure. So when you're generating the report, so to review what the head count report looks like, you're going to go to that dashboard and choose the fall or the spring head count. You're going to click Run, and then you can click review, and then there's a lot of different things that you can review. So let me kind of go through. First of all, there's two different sets of views. There's the LEA view, and then there's the school level view. So if you're doing it at the school level and you're reviewing things, the sub-listing of the different types of views are in that drop-down that you can choose from. And they may be different. They may be actually, the numbers obviously will be different if you're looking at it from the school view versus the LEA view. It's the easiest one that we can do. It's a run and a click review tab. It looks like we have a couple questions. Can teachers see these tabs, program services and ID evidence?
They should be able to, but they would have to go into the backpack and look in the program information.
Okay. If not, we definitely need a remedy ticket for that to find out why if they're not seeing it. Right. So thank you for that question.
And I think the next question is actually the same question.
Yes. If portions of the DEP services are indicated in PowerSchool, will it show up for teachers? So yeah, if they don't, please put a ticket in and specify which teacher and which school so that we have the enough information to work it back. Is there a way to export AIG students using field value? Okay, so student field value. I don't have any idea. Export. You can do list students, and if you can do list students, you should be able to do an export from that list. So if you're going to do a search for that field name, that long field name that ends with status, and then you do the pound sign, and you're going to get a list of all of those students, you can then export that list by going to list students and then export that. So yes, the answer is yes, you can.
Awesome. I'll put that in here.
Okay, oh, awesome. While she's typing that, so I maybe just say, yes, you can, utilizing list students.
Oh, whoops, sorry.
That's okay. I think I can do that.
So here's another question. I'm looking for the Fall AIG Headcount review now in PowerSchool, and for some reason I'm only getting the count from one of our elementary schools. I'm in the LEA office, not sure why I'm not seeing all. If you look up in the upper right-hand corner of the landing page, you may need to check on the LEA. Okay, there's a drop-down where you can select an individual school or select the LEA office. And so can you check for me when you look there, are you selecting LEA office or are you only looking at one school? Does that make sense?
Okay.
Jackie, do you know what I'm talking about?
Actually, no, I'm kind of going back to 9. So I didn't really listen to you. I apologize for that. I was typing.
No problem.
I don't think, let me kind of go back to Nye's question first about the exporting it. So I may modify that question to maybe instead of yes, because I think you want all of the identification statuses and not just are they tagged or are they not tagged.
Oh, okay.
So I think that's the export that you want. So if you want just are they tagged or not tagged, then yes. If you want all of that, what service they are in, isn't it in one of the reports?
It is in a report. You can run the report.
Okay, and which report would she run?
So if what you're looking for is the program evidence or the program information or the identification evidence, you can run those reports. And that is in the state standalone reports. You can run it from there or in the individual student. I'm not sure what she was looking for, but that's where you can find that. You're welcome. Okay.
I'll go back to Paula's in just one second.
Okay, hold on, Paula. We're going to go back to that question.
Yeah.
She has selected the LEA office, but she's only seeing one of her elementary schools. Paula, it may be that only one of your elementary schools so far has actually run the head count to begin the review process. I'm going to check in.
So they need to do, the school needs to do it first before you can say to the LEA level. That is very true.
So since we're talking about the head count already, let me just share with you kind of a process to think about as you are preparing for this data poll, okay? So can you go back one slide, Jackie?
I think I can.
Okay. So what you're wanting to do is you're wanting to run the head count at the individual school level first, okay? Each school needs to run the head count and thoroughly check their data, okay? If there are any errors, any changes, any issues, when you run this head count, it is a kind of a snapshot in time. It's a frozen static report. And so if you, after doing that, make changes, you have to actually run that head count again to capture all of those changes. So you need to run it, check everything, rerun it if changes were made before you can click the approve button. And that has to happen at each of the schools before you do it at the district office. And so really want you to encourage your folks to be starting this process now, okay? And so, starting this process soon. And you can, November 15th is the date that the window actually opens. That's the earliest you can do the approval part. You could be running that head count now and cleaning that data now, but November 15th is the day that the window opens. We will, on November 30th, it will be locked, and we will pull the data as it exists on November 30th. Now, occasionally, there is an outstanding help desk ticket that might hold up the process briefly, but you need to know that your data will be locked down November 30th. You will not be able to go back and approve after that point. We will pull the data as it is, okay? So I encourage you to begin that process now, run it, take a look at it, make changes, so that you are prepared to do that. Now, let me just say that here's the other interesting caveat about November 30th. No, students must be receiving services by then in order to count, okay? So you can enter data up until the 30th, okay? But they must be receiving services in order to count in your head count, okay?
Makes sense. Okay. And that's a lot of talk. Is there some type of confirmation sent to the LEA once the data is pulled on 11/30?
No, there's not. No. I would say, Wendy, that we actually are, we actually don't send anything that says we've pulled the data.
Right.
We do publish the data. And I would also say that I kind of get reports all along the way that show folks who are running, reviewing the head count. And so if I see that, like, your district, nobody has run it, nobody has done anything to it, then I will send you an email, okay, and say, hey, we need for you to take a look because we're not seeing it, okay? And so let me clarify. I'm so sorry. There's a couple of questions to clarify. The student must be receiving services by November 15th. You can continue. Let's say that you have a student who you've identified and you are serving beginning on November 15th, but you don't get to put that record in until November 24th. That's fine. The student has to be receiving services on or before the 15th to be included in the pool on November 30th. Let's say that you also have a student who comes to you on November 18th, right? And you begin serving them November 18th. They are not going to show up on your November 30th head count. So sorry about that. I was talking about two separate things, but because there's the issue of when is it open, when does it close? That's separate from when do they have to start receiving services. Does that make sense?
Okay, so maybe this is the same type of question. The date of identification. I'm referring to the student's start date in the program. In the past, there was a cutoff date of identification to be used.
Yes. And I'm saying identification because Carrie, I think what you mean is we've identified students and begun to serve them.
They may be two different dates, right? So if we identified them during one of our, our meetings and meeting with the parents and whatever, so if we've identified them on the meeting day of October 29th, but they don't start to receive services until November 16th.
Okay, and so this is a question, this is one of those district defined because you put in, it's looking for their initial identification date because that's the date that you enter. You're not required to put in a services start date. That's only one of those optional pieces in the program information. So that's a great question though. So that's why I said be consistent with what you mean. When do you put in that initial date? Okay, that's pretty critical. Right, and so just be consistent with that, okay?
All right.
I don't know about workflow options.
Okay, so the identification date.
That is what is triggering the report.
Is the date that triggers.
And we really, well, I can't say that first with 100%. I won't say that, but there generally should not be a huge lag time between identification and services beginning.
Right.
Is that what you were asking, Carrie? Can you just let us know in the chat bar if that clarified for you, if that made it muddier?
Okay. While she's doing that, so you said you weren't sure about what she meant by the workflow. In the workflow options column on the reports, an approve button will show up beginning November 15th. Currently, there is only a run and review.
That's correct.
That is true.
That is correct. You can't approve it, but that's what I'm saying. You can run that report now. In fact, in my former district, our data manager sent out instructions for them to get on the ball and run that report. She wanted it run no later than, November 1st, I think it was, because she wanted all that data thoroughly examined, cleaned, any errors. We wanted to give ourselves a window of time to make sure that if there was an error, we had time to fix it before the final pull. And so, yes, you won't have an approve button until November 15th. That's when the report window opens. Okay, and I will say, if you find a mistake, you can unapprove, fix the mistake, rerun it, reapprove it.
Right.
You can do that as much as you need to until November 30th. And at that point, it is locked, and unless we are actively working on a case with you. Okay.
So this kind of this kind of slide just kind of goes through some of the different exceptions, some of the warnings that you might see. So there is the AIG 1, 2, or 3. So if your students are missing some demographic data that it definitely needs, maybe it's date of birth, or if it's ethnicity or something that it's looking for, it may come out here as a warning. Previous AIG students, so you might definitely go through all of those exceptions. So when you choose the category of AIG exceptions, when you're viewing your information, definitely look at all AIGs 1, 2s, and 3s. So because they're warnings, does not stop you from approving it. It is just a warning telling you, go back and take a look. The AIG 2 is actually information. So it is not going to, again, stop you from doing the approval. The only thing that stops the approval are fatals. So if there are such things. So I know that Stephanie did talk about this. The school can correct errors and review the warnings. School approves their head count for their school, and then the LEA approves for the entire district. Okay, she's
Let me
telling me
also
that
just
she
say,
wants to
let me also just say that if you do have a number 3, if you have a duplicate registration, the only way to fix that is with the help desk ticket.
Right, because that means, a duplicate registration.
That means there's a duplicate record. And oftentimes, you can't see the duplicate. On your end, it looks like the student's only on the head count once.
Okay.
I cannot describe it. It's been called a ghost record, all kinds of other things, but that is a ticket that I need to know about ASAP. You need to do a help desk ticket, and you need to also let me know in an email, because then I will work with the Power School team to get it up the chain to eliminate that duplicate record. So if you see an AIG 3, that is, you need to, get that taken care of ASAP, because it takes a little bit of time. It's a special kind of script.
Right. So between November 15 and 30, if you're getting an AIG 3 and you put the ticket in, you also need to call the support desk and say, this is my reference number. Please update the severity of it, or the urgency of it.
And because they will do that, they know that when they're getting help desk tickets in that window of time, that they bump it up the chain so that it can get taken care of, because they know the critical nature of the data. So if you will also just forward me a copy of that confirmation of the ticket, I'll help you get that escalated.
Nice.
So that's pretty important. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and these are just showing you how to verify. This is running that report. So it's found under Special Functions. If you go to Special Functions, North Carolina, Special Functions, you can choose the Fall AIG or Spring AIG student listing. So that's kind of where it is and what it looks like. It's always a good thing to have for reference purposes. Looking at the other reports are found under state reports on the left-hand side in the navigation bar, and you go to standalone reports. So that is a tab. You can find the AIG report there as well. So there's a couple different ones there. Again, just good things to have as reference so you know where to find what.
Yeah, and before now, it was pretty helpful that I will call your attention to that one. This is AIG latest record from another LEA or school. If you weren't sure that your transfer process had worked correctly, you could run that report and you can quickly see, is there any student in your school who has an AIG record that doesn't match the current school? And that's the other way that you can find a transfer student. So that's helpful. We hope that that will not be necessary anymore, but it is still there for you to use. Okay?
Anytime you can verify data is perfect.
Perfect.
Exactly. Okay, so we've gone through a lot of stuff and we've kind of showed you different QRDs. This page simply just lists them, hopefully all. I didn't miss any through the other steps, but I think I've included all of the resources that we had listed throughout the other slides. They should be clickable as well. If there is anything that we need to add to these slides, if you found some other QRDs or some other places of information that you have found useful that will help your other LEA cohort, you know, your friends and neighbors, let Stephanie know and we can get this updated. But it will be definitely posted. So this webinar is called AIG Functionality. And that is going to get posted to NCSIS. And I will say that others that are older will get archived, so that they're never going to, you know, disappear, but they're not going to be as visible. We want to keep just the most current stuff on those pages.
And I will send out to the coordinators, I generally send out to the coordinators when it's available on NCSIS. I will send you an email to say the most recent update regarding PowerSchool and AIG functionality, that webinar is now posted. I'll send you the link and let you know that it's posted.
And it's also available through the Friday bulletin.
Yes. Yeah, for those of you, because we know we've got a mixed audience today,
Correct.
So we want to make sure you know where the resources are. So just a final note, for student to be included in the fall 17-18 headcount, their start date must be on or before November 15th. That same thing is true in April when we do the spring headcount. On or before April 15th, they'll be included on the April 30th data poll. Again, we do use this headcount not only for our child count purposes, but for your accountability purposes. So please, please, please be very thoughtful about making sure that this data is accurate, because it will reflect it in a couple of different ways. And so we want to make sure this is accurate. If you have any questions regarding AIG functionality, if there are things you wish PowerSchool would do that it doesn't, feel free to share those kinds of things with me via email. I feel like since we started with PowerSchool, about 5 years ago, I think we have done huge enhancements.
Strides, yeah.
We have made some great strides. I know there's a lot still to do. There's a lot we wish would, work differently, but we have done a lot of great work, a lot of enhancements, and that's because we get feedback from the field. So please do share with us if there are things that you need that we don't have right now.
Sure.
Okay?
So there is a question saying, can you just show us where to see stuff on NCSIS and how we find it?
Sure.
So I'm going to open a new tab. I'm hoping that you're going to see it, and it's going to be www.nc-sis.org, and I'm just going to hit enter. So this is the NCSIS page, and in the right-hand side, there is a Google, like a custom search, and if I click into that text box and I just type AIG, and I hit the enter key, it should show me all things that is AIG. So some of these obviously are older. So this is May 2015, April 2014. So you'll be able to find new stuff. As we post new things, you should see it with a new date. This actually shows you, I'm sorry to do that, I wanted to see just this last line. This should show you the actual URL or spots where it actually lives. And that is where you're going to find the newest one that we're just showing today. So I'm hoping that will help a little bit. The other thing I can tell you as just a little tip and trick, after you do that search and you want to go back to NCSIS, use the back button. There is no other way to get back to this page after you do a search like that.
Can you also go under training?
We can, and that's the other thing that we're going to talk about. That's awesome. We work so well together.
I know. We should do
so. Under training, you can always look at the calendar to see what's coming up. You could look at presentations that have been done. So this would be a presentation. You could look there. You could look at recorded refreshers. So this is where our recording will live. So it will be there. So I'm just going to click on presentations for the moment. And if you scroll down, so this is what we did for new AIG coordinators back in the end of September. So as I go along, there is an older AIG process. So we're going to get rid of some of this older stuff, but you will find it will be in alphabetic order So you should see all of the different.
Cool to me. You can see your AIG stuff right there on the top.
Because it's A, because you're just, so your name, it's not utter or anything that you're always at the bottom of everything. Yes.
Yes.
So it's kind of cool. So presentations works. The calendar will help you. The recorded refreshers will help you. So if I go there, you can see that we do have a policy and functionality. And if I scroll to the right, you should see there the date, and actually it is a recorded that you could listen to. So we will have those updated for you. I was just given this program. Is there a copy of my district's plan online anywhere?
Yes, ma'am, it is. Welcome to the AIG family, Karen. You can, we do have an online copy of your plan. If you visit, can you open a new tab, Jackie, and maybe go to the DPI homepage? This will be helpful for anyone. Just the ncpublicschools.org.
Not if they can't type.
Okay. You go to the NC Public Schools page and you go to, I'm under departments. If you'll look at departments, you see that middle, yep. You choose Advanced Learning Division, so it's the fourth one. And this is our division homepage, and you'll see on the left-hand side all of the areas that we are responsible for in the Advanced Learning Division. But the second tab is Academically or Intellectually Gifted. So if you click there, you will see we have several pages. One of them says Local AIG Plans, and if you click that, yes, ma'am, you will have a drop-down menu, and you could choose to look at any district in the state or the charter schools with an approved AIG program. So that's the fastest way, I think, to get a copy of your district's plan. And Karen, if you'll just email me, we can have some discussion and kind of get you started with lots of other pieces as well. Okay,
so
I'm going to put my email address in the chat, in the answer box for you.
NC Public Schools.
Yep,
.org.
ncpublicschools.org.
Departments.
Advanced Learning.
Thank you.
And then you can choose AIG. It's spelled out, but AIG.
Or intellectually. Oof, I guess that's not me.
It's a mouthful.
Yeah. And then local.
Local AIG plan. And you can look at any plan in the state, which I think is pretty cool. To be able to go take a look and see what you're doing.
Perfect.
Compared to folks around you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so I did go back to the last slide, so you do have Stephanie's address to get back to her. The very last item, if I can get that black line to disappear on me, is where you can enter a ticket. Now, not everyone can enter remedy tickets.
That's correct. I can't even enter a remedy ticket.
So it has to be either the data manager or the LEA coordinator or your Power School coordinator, whoever wears those type of hats. So I just wanted to make sure that you guys were aware of that. It is 11:19. Oh, we do have a question. Good job. We are not listed. Does that mean our school doesn't have an AIG program?
I would say that depends. Let's see, Renee, if you're in a charter school, that could possibly mean that you do not have an AIG program. If you will email me, Renee, then I can try to help you find that out. Every LEA is mandated to have an AIG program, but if you are at a charter school, that is absolutely optional. And so right now we have about 18 to 20 charter schools with an official AIG program. And if your name's not in the drop down, that means either they have not submitted their plan yet, Or maybe it means that they don't have a plan. So if you can email me, I can kind of help you figure that out. Okay.
Okay. There's a couple more.
I think she's just trying to let me know that. I don't think that's a question. Right?
Okay. Okay. Yes, and Renee is a charter school. Do we have any other types of questions? And if Karen, if you have any other kind of question for us based on your role, that would, we'll definitely take that as well. 11:21, we did pretty darn well. We did. A little bit earlier. I mean, we are definitely can stay on if we have other things that need to be talked about. Otherwise, I'll give you just like another minute to think about a couple last things before we say our goodbyes. I'd like to thank Stephanie for being here and helping through the policy type stuff.
Yes.
And as a facilitator, it's easy to maneuver with great folks like that. So.
Thank you, Jackie. And Jackie's been fantastic to work with. She helped us with our orientation, and it's been good partnership.
Cool.
So we'll be around for a few minutes if you guys have any other questions. And please do continue to let us know how we can help support you in the field, okay? So feel free. I'm only an email away.
All right.
And I try to be not like too long.
Yeah.
So just let me know. Just let me know if I can help.
Closer to November 30th might be a little different story, but we got that. Okay. Well, you guys, I'm going to stop the recording, and everyone have a wonderful time.
Wonderful day, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.